The largest element that moves your story forward is your character's goal, or what the character wants. A character without a goal is aimless and leaves you without a story. Today, we're going to talk about your character's goal and how to make sure that you're adding a good, strong goal for your character.
You have a story to tell, but you don't know where to start. Let me show you how to free your story. I teach you how to write and how to dig deep in your soul to release your story and make a difference in the world.
Welcome to the Julia Amante channel. If we're just meeting, I am Julia Amante. I'm a women's fiction author. And so let's talk today about making sure that your character has a good, strong goal. I'm actually going to share with you a story book about a character who appears to actually have the opposite. Okay, so the character's name is Henry, and he was the main character of Post Office. So make sure you can see that, by Charles Bukowski. And I came across this book back when I was teaching just basic English composition. And I wanted to find something that the students were interested in, because a lot of the stories, especially a lot of the books, that are literary, or they're made for, for the college reader to discuss big issues. They weren't interested in it. They were having a hard time reading it. And I came across this one and I thought, okay, this is something that's going to catch their attention. And there was a lot in here that I wanted to unpack and talk about. There were a lot of different themes and a lot of things that I thought we could have a good discussion about. But this character is horrible. Okay, he's a misogynistic pig. He is a drunk. The only thing that he appears to care about, or the only goals he seems to have, is to get drunk, to have sex, and to gamble. He really seems aimless. He really doesn't seem like he has a goal. Packed in there is a goal, because this story is based on Charles Bukowski's actual, on his life. And so Henry mirrors a lot of Bukowski's own, background. And so Henry, the character, wants to be a writer, just like Charles wanted to be a writer. But how do you write a story? How do you have a story with a character that's completely unlikable? A story where the character is seems aimless. He just doesn't really care about anything, and again, he's just not likable. Where's the story there? What's the goal? What's the point of the story? And how does Bukowski actually pull it off if it appears that the character doesn't have a goal? Okay, so let me clarify that then. The character might not know he has a goal, because Henry, although he wants to write, doesn't really know that he has a goal. He doesn't really appear to have a goal, even to himself. But you, as the writer, have to know what the character's goal is. So even though Henry doesn't know that, Bukowski, somewhere in his mind, must have known what the character's goal was. He had to have, because it was again based on his own life, and he knew, maybe even unconsciously, that he had a goal, right? So what is Henry's goal then? If all he's doing through the whole story is having sex, going from one woman to the next, mistreating women, drinking, gambling the money that he has away, barely working, again, he's just kind of floating through life. But the goal that Henry has to write a book is just one of them, right? It's the one that he kind of leaves and comes back to and goes and does it a little bit at a time, drinks, writes. He's not really following the goal that really he does want. But his other goal, I would say the larger life goal that he has, is to be respected by society. He works for, as the title of the book indicates, for the post office. And this is back in like the 1950s. And one of the comments, I guess commentary about the book, is about American institutions and the way that they treated. So they treated him terribly. They would he starts off as a part-time carrier, right? So when the regular carrier can't do it, but they treat him terribly. They treat him like a child. When he finally gets hired on full time, they check up on him. So he's sick a lot. He's really not sick. He's really just drunk and hung over, but he calls in sick. Well, they actually send like somebody from the post office, a nurse from the post office, to his house to make sure that he's really sick. Huge intrusion into his life. And so there's a lot of commentary. So what his desires are, what he really wants from life is, first of all, he wants to be respected as a human being. He doesn't deserve respect because of the way that he acts, but he's a human being. And so he deserves, right, the respect of being a person, not treated like a child, not treated like a servant by his company. He also wants to be happy, like all of us, right? We all want happiness. We all want to be, to lead a good life. We want to have a job. We want love, even though he doesn't appear to want love. But as we learn a little bit about his background, we come to understand, still not like him, but we still come to understand, like, why is he the way he is? His parents, his mom, the way that they treated him, he was kind of, he was out on his own. It's a whole long story, right? And there's a little backstory there. So we come to understand who he is, and we actually sometimes feel sorry for him, because even though he's doing terrible things, we feel bad for him, because we know, right, as the reader, we know that his ultimate goal, this goal that he has to achieve success, to be able to write his book and be successful, to be happy, to be treated better by the job, to actually have a job where that matters. Like, he can't even get up and go get a drink of water without getting yelled at. And so the reason that we know he wants these things, by the way, is because of the actions that he takes. So he does things on purpose to annoy his bosses, because he realizes that he's being treated terribly. He realizes that he wants more from life than to, be this robot or be this person that gets yelled at for every little thing that he does. They have to have so many, correspondence or letters counted or whatever it was he was doing. And not they get yelled at and they get written up, and these bosses yell at him. I mean, it's just horrific, right? To have to work in that environment. But he's always kind of shooting back at his bosses and his supervisors and stuff. He's always doing something to annoy them, to kind of say, hey, I don't deserve to be treated this way, even though he doesn't really say it. Another thing that we realize as we're reading this is he looks at the people that have been there 30 years, 40 years, and he sees how they have no spirit left, right? The job has kind of killed them before they're even dead. And he says, I don't really want this. I don't really want to be that guy. I wonder if when he started, he actually cared about the way he dressed. I wonder if so he starts to say this. And so we realize, right, that he wants that dignity that he deserves as a human being, to work at a job or do something that where he's not treated like an animal. And the interesting thing is, the thing that can get him out of that is that if he stops drinking, if he stops, the lifestyle that he has, and he actually dedicates himself to writing as he should. And those are the things he's not doing, right? So he works against himself. He's sort of he's also the protagonist, but he's also his own antagonist. So anyhow, I bring up this story because this is the one character that I read where I thought, this character has no goal. So, I believe characters need to have a goal in order to move the story forward. And here's a character that doesn't seem to have a goal. So to test my own theory, I thought, okay, well, if I'm going to talk about this, here's a guy who doesn't have a goal. Is it true, what I'm saying? But it is true, right? So he actually really does have a goal. It doesn't seem like it when the story starts, but he really does have a goal. And the writer has a goal for him as well, because by the end of the book, I don't know if you want to read it, you can. I don't want to spoil it for you, but by the end of the goal, he ends up achieving things, and he does certain things that make you, even though he does all these terrible things, he does certain things that makes you realize that, he has a heart in there somewhere. He's a good guy somewhere in there deep down. And So he wants that, right? He wants to be a better person. And near the end, he sort of achieves that, a little bit. He's moving in the right direction. Let's put it that way. Okay. So he does begin to achieve that goal, and we can see that he's going to. Now, Bukowski himself, this becomes the first book that he actually sells, and I think the guy was I think he was in his 50s himself, and he had multiple other books of the same type of hero, right? Or anti-hero, I don't know. He has the same type of character that is, again, just not a character. And there are actually a few movies made, and Californication is a series that was based on his books. And actually, I don't think he liked it, because I thought he thought the character was actually too good looking and too well refined and all that, and he never liked that kind of character. But anyways, he ends up selling his books, to Hollywood, and he ends up doing pretty well. I don't know that he ever really changes much himself, but he ends up at least being successful as an author. So even he, as a character, does well, right? Achieves his goal. He has a goal and he achieves the goal. Okay, and there are 4 things that I want you to remember. The first thing is that you want to make your goal clear to your reader at the very beginning of the story. Okay, so don't wait until chapter 3 to let the reader know what the goal is. The reader will lose interest and will, maybe put your book down. It's like, if it seems like the book is going nowhere, then why continue to read it, right? So the first thing you want to do is just make it clear. It doesn't have to be that first page, but very, very close. Definitely in that first chapter. You want the reader to understand what the character wants, where the character is headed, what the goals are, what maybe the obstacles are going to be, why the character is afraid to go towards a goal, why the character doesn't, whatever it might be, whatever the character is feeling about the desire that they want something, what's keeping them from moving forward, or what's going to push them to move forward towards that goal. At the very beginning, make sure that the reader understands that, so that the reader knows why they're reading. It's like, okay, you're planting these questions in their mind, right? So that they say, okay, well, I see what this character wants. How's he going to get that? I see why he's afraid to go forward. How's he going to move forward past that fear? Okay, so make it clear at the very beginning what the character wants. Okay, the other thing to understand is that characters have that external goal of wanting something. Usually it's something outside of themselves, right? A job or whatever they want. But they also have an internal goal. So they have the external and they have the internal goals. Sometimes they match, sometimes they don't match. Okay, with Henry, didn't really match. Okay, what he really wants is respect. He wants to write the book. He wants all of that stuff. But his internal goals of being loved, of being accepted, of being successful, they don't match his actions. They don't his internal goals are not being met because his external goals are not, he's not, fighting for them. He's not moving forward towards them. He's not writing his book. He's not being nice to women. How do you get love if you're not nice to the people that you want love from? So, he's horrible to the women. The women abuse him just as much, right? So they take advantage of him. They treat him just as poorly as he treats them. Well, maybe not just as poorly. He treats them worse, I think. But anyhow, he's not going to get his internal goals met until he actually reaches his external goals, until he actually tries to even meet those goals and succeed and achieve those goals. So they do match in a way that, if he reaches his external goals, he's going to meet his internal goals, but they're kind of different. He fights against them, right? He doesn't do his writing. He drinks. He treats women terribly. So that means he's not meeting those internal goals that he wants. By not writing the book, he's not making money, which keeps him stuck at the post office at that terrible job. By being horrible to women, he's not finding love, even though his goal is never to, find somebody that he loves. Like, his external goal is not to find love or to find the perfect woman. He doesn't even believe that's possible. He has no respect for women. He doesn't really, that's not in there. However, he has the external goal of being loved, because, we all have that, really. So, that those two goals don't match. And so he's never going to find that woman that ideal woman, even though some of those women really do care for him, so he but he doesn't, there's no connection there in his brain between I need to be a better person and in order to get love, because he doesn't really want that in a way, right? Like his external goal is not to find the woman or get married or anything like that. So make sure you have internal goals, make sure you have external goals, because you need them both to have a nice, complete, fulfilling story. The next thing is to make sure that you're making your goals challenging. So we don't want the character to have a simple goal that he can achieve easily, because then there's no story, right? There's no struggle to get to the goal. So the character has to need or want a goal that is not easily achievable. It's beyond their capacity right now being the person they are. This is why we talk about characters going on journeys, right? They're going on this journey to become a new person, to become somebody different. So right now, whoever the person is right now, it's a challenge to get to that goal, because they haven't learned anything. They don't have the skills to get what they want. They need to go through this journey of your story in order to meet these goals. So make them a little challenging. That doesn't mean they have to be impossible. It could look impossible though, because that's great if they look impossible, because the reader will be wondering, how in the world is this person going to achieve this goal? There's no way. And through your story, through the things that you do, you're going to show how the person reaches their goal. Now, the person does not have to reach their goal. Not every character gets the goal that they want, right? In life, we don't all get what we want. And in fiction, they mostly do, but they don't always get what they want, right? They don't always have that nice package of their desires at the end of the story, even if they do everything right. There's many reasons for that. One of them is maybe the goal that they wanted is not the goal that they needed, right? So sometimes characters want something, but they don't really need that. They need something else. So, with Henry, again, he wants to write. He does actually achieve his goal. But there are the other goals that he had, maybe of being happy and having being loved by someone. That goal he's not really going to achieve. Not being the person he is, and the way that Bukowski wrote the book, not what he's shown, right? He's shown that he's not going to change. He's not going to ever become a person that is going to have a happy marriage, for example. So that goal is not going to be achieved. And it's fine, even though he doesn't want that anyways, but he does want that, right? Internally he wants that, but he's not going to get that. So, is he going to get something that he needs instead? Yes. He does get certain things that he needs. He doesn't get the happy, wife and all of that, but he actually gets a child. One of the women have a baby, and he likes the baby, but because of who he is and the attitude that he has, the woman decides, I'm going to move away and I'm going to go do something else. And he's like, oh, well, okay, that's too bad. I really like the kid, but he doesn't fight for the baby. He doesn't, but he does have, and I don't know if I think he ends up with a slight relationship with the child. But, he gets something else that he needs. He comes to realize that, he comes to care for this woman, and he comes to care for the child. So he learns, to have, explore those feelings a little bit. So again, your character doesn't have to meet their goals, doesn't have to get exactly what they want, but they usually will get what they need, and they will usually, get something different. If they're not going to get their goal, they will get something different that again helps them to grow and helps them to become a better person. Okay, and lastly is that the goal has to matter, and it's related to the last one, but not exactly. The goal has to be challenging, but it also has to matter. So if the character does not get the goal that they set for themselves, what are the consequences? Why is this important? You want to show that to the reader. So it has to matter to them. It has to matter to their life. Okay, so if Bukowski never becomes published, he probably would have ended up dead somewhere. He would have continued to probably work at the post office and drink his life away and die. Just the way, in fact, there's one of the women in the story, that's exactly what happens to her. She just drinks herself to death because she has nothing to live for. It's kind of an interesting connection there that he realizes, right? Oh my God, she drank herself to death. You can read through the lines, I guess, where he says, that's too bad, and you kind of feel like, okay, well, maybe he's realizing this is what's going to happen to me if I keep drinking, if I keep living this lifestyle. Why does it matter if he writes this book and he's able to leave the post office and he's able to earn money in a different way? Because his life is at stake. His belief in himself as a man, as a person that can actually achieve something, is at stake. So it has to matter to the character. And then if it matters to the character, it's going to matter to the reader. Okay, so make sure that the goal is important enough that it matters. It's going to change the character's life in some way. All right, and the only thing that I want to add here is that sometimes there's different devices that you can use, right? Literary devices. One of them that works really well in stories is the ticking clock. And I think for goals, it works well so that they don't have the rest of their life to achieve this goal, but they have a certain amount of time to achieve the goal. And, it could be an hour, it could be a day, it could be a year. But if they don't achieve that goal by a certain time, it's going to be too late for the character. They're not going to get that goal. They're not going to get what they want. Their life's going to go in a different direction. They're going to die. Something's going to happen, right? Depending on the type of story you're writing. If they're trying to catch a killer, they only have like a certain amount of time to do it before something terrible happens, right? Or if they're going to fall in love, they're going to have a timeline when this has to happen, because if they miss out on that one moment when they're supposed to say I love you, or where they're supposed to do something and they don't do it, then what happens? The moment is gone forever. The person is gone forever, right? So there has to be some kind of ticking clock, because this keeps you, right? It keeps you going as the writer. I know I need to do this by a certain time. It also keeps the reader interested, because they know that the character doesn't have forever, that if they don't do it by a certain time, then they're going to miss out on their goal. So ticking clock works really nice. So think about adding that. All right, I hope that these tips have been helpful to you, that it makes you think more about making sure that your character's goal is a strong goal, and that you make sure that you have a character goal, again, from the very beginning. Make it clear, make it evident, and you will capture your reader's attention from the beginning of your story. All right. I will see you again next Friday. Make sure that you hit the like and the share button, and that you come back next Friday, and we will continue talking about writing, and I'll share a new tip